Una volta che abbiate conosciuto il volo, camminerete sulla terra guardando il cielo, perché là siete stati e là vorrete tornare. Once you have tested flight, you will always walk the earth with your eyes turned skywards. For there you have been, and there you will always long to return. This is Leonardo da Vinci, the day he made a man fly. And it seems it's a false statement. Well, who cares? I don't care, because this statement is inspiring careers in aerospace since decades. And I will tell you my story about that. When I was 13 years old, I took a big pencil and a black paint, and I wrote that statement on the entire wall of my room. I still remember the reaction of my parents when they came home. They said, "Oh, she looks a little bit bizarre." But she has a so strong passion that actually she has the right to do it. And this statement is written at the entrance of my office. So 25 years later, those words are still driving my everyday work in space. That's why I don't believe in new space and old space, simply because there is no new passion and old passion. My name is Morena BERNARDINI. I'm the head of strategy of ArianeGroup. And you have understood, today we're talking about bring objects and the humans into space.
Control center to everyone. We are 1 minute from launch and counting. I've just been informed that we have perfect weather conditions above Kourou. Susie, what's your status?
Control center, my name is not Susie.
Very funny, Nicole. I guess that is what you call astronaut humor. How are the vehicle and crew doing?
Susie 11 crew is doing great, all systems nominal. The 5 of us are go for launch. Let's fire up our Ariane 6.
Copy that. On my count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, lift off.
And stop. That's frustrating, I know. You will meet Susie later. By the way, what's Susie? Susie is a new way of conceiving reusability of the space transportation launcher. It's a very smart concept for the upper part of a launcher, able to do cargos, but Susie, it's also about exploration. It's about a new kind of cargos to bring in space, and it is about human space flight. Susie, it's an answer to the changes and the technological innovation we are experiencing in those times, since our domain has become increasingly competitive, and especially since few healthy space geeks enter into the game. So it is a way to respond to those challenges, those change who are acting and on a global scale on the space activities. And us in Europe, we certainly need to embrace those changes, to adapt to those changes, because we want to keep our strategic autonomy of access and moving into space. It takes years to develop a space transportation system, because it's complex, because it is rocket science. The road is long between a technological demonstrator to a reliable and industrialized system. So it is about being able to anticipate and target the future needs. And that's why we, ArianeGroup, the European leaders of access to space, we work together with ESA, the NEST vision. The NEST vision is, most of all, our capability to target future needs, opportunities, and technological endeavors. And to do so, we joined forces with few partners, Airbus, Thales Alenia Space, but also newcomers like Orbex, D-Orbit, and even academies, Polytechnique de Lausanne. Bringing all those experiences together means to benefit from a very large and complementary set of skills. So be able to anticipate, because yes, the competition today is very tough, but it is also our best chance to change. So to do that, in this vision of the 2030 space transportation onwards, we work together. Common, and other key words. Part of European space industry's DNA. That's the way we could develop in the last 40 years very sophisticated technologies. That's the way we choose to work together with partners. And in order to envision this future of space transportation, we, ArianeGroup, we could define 3 possible scenarios. We call that resilience, security, and in-space revolution. Of course, the last one is our favorite one because it's describing a very brilliant future for the industry in the next decades. And let's have a more insight about those together with Joost. This guy has the coolest job in the company. He's a human space flight manager.
Thank you, thank you. Maybe they just chose me because I'm a bit closer to space than the average of us, being quite tall. Now, kidding aside, talking to you that space transportation is cool and that the future is full of opportunities is not hard because you're an easy crowd. But we have to understand the strategic role that space plays for our society here on Earth, today, and even much more so tomorrow. And it is for this reason that, together with our NEST study partners, we started investigating 3 scenarios. 3 scenarios, very different in their nature and in their context, but where we've been looking to the commonalities between the scenarios. Commonalities that will provide us robustness for a future that, of course, we do not know today. Now let's have a look at them. The first scenario, resilience, very much a continuity scenario. It's a scenario where Europe continues its transition towards a green economy, benefiting of sustainable space technologies. It is where markets are widely accessible, and throughout the markets, Europe will take its share. And with the increasing strategic use of space, we see that strategic autonomy is extended not just from access to space, but also in space and back down from space. And with these capabilities, Europe is then able to cooperate at eyes level. And those international cooperations, for instance in exploration, will lead to beautiful missions towards the moon, its surface, and to Mars and beyond. Now let's have a look at the second scenario, security. So definitely security is not our most favorite scenario. It is the, let's say, worst case. In this scenario, facing geopolitical tensions and insecurities, Europe takes a more standalone position, focusing on autonomy, on defense, for its own domestic needs. Each power bloc in the world will want its own telecommunications, Earth observation, also for security purposes, and we see a lot less cooperation. Exploration missions will see their scope reduced or even stopped because of the lack of these international alliances. Now, I have to say, when we were working on this scenario 2 years ago, it looked very far away because we were living in a safe world. But recently, honestly, we've been seeing many aspects of this scenario popping up. And then the third scenario, in-space revolution, definitely our favorite one. It is the one where we are looking at all the opportunities that in-space assembly and manufacturing can provide us. In this scenario, the in-space economy flourishes, and throughout the market segments, many new commercial opportunities arise. We see very large satellites being assembled in orbit, just like platforms, space stations. And we also see very large infrastructures. Why? Because they benefit from the much more intense solar power that we can get in space. These infrastructures can serve multiple purposes. Think about space data centers, solar power stations, and other manufacturing and assembly hubs. Now, these infrastructures will also require not only to be deployed and maintained and have an end-of-life strategy, but will also require human operators. Because, let's face it, even here on Earth, in the most roboticized factories, we need and benefit of local human operators. And for exploration, we see missions to the lunar surface and beyond. Now, throughout the three scenarios, we see many diverse activities in low and medium Earth orbit, geostationary orbit, towards the moon and beyond. So we see a lot of different masses that need to be transported to many different destinations. This does not only require access to space. As we said, it requires many new in-space activities, such as dispatching, tugging, refueling, payload upgrades, inspection, assembly and manufacturing, name it, and not to forget, end-of-system life removal and debris removal. So we're not only going to be transporting satellites, we're going to be transporting equipments, materials, different kind of fuels. And we will also see that there will be a requirement for services requiring pressurized and conditioned cargo and, of course, human spaceflight. Now let's talk a bit about exploration. Space exploration has always played a significant role for the development of space transportation, as you know. And ESA has recently published their Terra Nove strategy document, investigating how Europe intends to position itself in the global context. And we indeed think that this roadmap is key for our vision of the future. And why? Because it investigates the nice balance that we have to have between independence and cooperation. We have seen that certain equilibria are very fragile. And we've also seen, and we know, that collaboration and cooperation can bring about beautiful missions. A nice example of that is the Lunar Orbital Platform, a space station around the moon, which will provide us a stepping stone towards the lunar surface and beyond towards Mars in the long term. Furthermore, on the lunar surface, we will be seeing more and more activities, infrastructures, many elements, infrastructures requiring power systems, which require mobility, which will require in-situ resource utilization, and which will require a lot of logistics, cargo, human, not only towards the surface, but just as well back. So now you finally understand that actually throughout the scenarios, all the types of activities we need is actually not so different. The list is the same. It's just the amount of use we make of each differs per scenario, of course. And furthermore, we see that cargo and human spaceflight will play an increasingly strategic role.
So you see, space transportation is really under a shift of paradigm, and we definitely need to acquire new capabilities in order to fill all those missions. Up to now, launches bring payloads into a defined point into space. Could be far or close, Earth's orbit, moon orbit, outer space. This is what we call the point-to-point approach. To do so, we use different launches because they have to fill a different missions profile. So to be very clear, we are not, ArianeGroup, we don't believe in the one-size-fits-all. We still need to have different launches able to perform different missions profile, simply because this is what so diversified missions require in Europe. By the way, if you look at the transportation on Earth, nobody is applying this rule neither. I mean, you do not go from A to B on Earth only with one mean. In the future, we believe we are going towards a space logistic network. So launches will continue to carry payloads, be sure, into hubs. It means that in the future, we will still need to have a family of launches with different performances, able to fit all those diversified missions. And that's why ArianeGroup proposes a family for the next generation of our launches in Europe. Launches that are modular, scalable, for sure reusable, using commonalities, some sub-assemblies, common sub-assemblies like the Prometheus engine that we develop. And this family is basically composed by a mini, a medium, a heavy, and a very heavy launcher. For example, let's take the very heavy. It's using boosters who are the central core of the mini. Exactly what happens today between Vega C and Ariane 6, the central core of Vega C being Ariane 6 boosters. This approach ticks important boxes: flexibility, adaptability to the market, competitiveness, availability, reliability, I should say first this one, commonalities, standardization. All this is about the future family, and some heavy version can be equipped with a very special upper part, Susie. Susie is not a vehicle you put under the fairing. Susie is part of the launcher. Susie is the way we make the launches evolve in order to be more than just a way to reach space. And the good news is that it is already possible with Ariane 6. So it's time for you to meet Susie, and who better than the brilliant architect engineer who's working on the concept since few time, Marco.
Thank you, Morena. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joost. So, first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And it's really a pleasure, it's really a big pleasure and the honor to be with you today, this afternoon, to share finally what we have in mind about Susie. We have been working now for the last 3 years about this concept, and now it's time to share it with you. First of all, as you have seen, with Ariane 6, we will have soon a very powerful, versatile, and evolutive launcher. Something where we can change the upper part in a very flexible way. So enough teasing now. What is really Susie? Well, first of all, Susie, it's an acronym. It stands for Smart Upper Stage for Innovative Exploration. But more than that, Susie, it's a very simple idea. The Susie is an idea which is simply to say we are going to change on the launcher the fairing, replace it with something smart, replace it with something that can carry in space and back from space safely cargo and humans. This being said, actually, I could stop my presentation here because this is the essence of Susie. What I will tell you more about it today. So first of all, what is special? What is smart on Susie? The first thing I would like to tell you about the smartness of Susie is how it mates with the Ariane launcher. With such a concept, what you can immediately understand is that we are not going to change significantly the launcher. We are going to reuse the assembly buildings and all the infrastructures that we have in order to fly with Susie. So the essence of the message is there is no major big modification that is foreseen on the launcher to fly with Susie. But the next idea that I would like to stress is the fact that we are going to introduce Susie without interrupting significantly the commercial launch activity of Ariane 6. Simply said, Susie, it's Ariane 6 ready, and vice versa. But not only when we say that, we also look it into perspective. We wanted to make it compatible with future evolutions of the launcher, not only, I would say, Ariane 6, but these future evolutions could be reusable or not. So how concretely does it work to put a Susie on an Ariane 6? We're going to use this model here that you see to show you that concretely. So thank you, Joost, for helping me. Voila, it's done. It was as easy as that. And we did it without crashing the thing. Huh? You have seen that. It was a major danger in the operation. So, a few words about this, what you see here. First of all, well, this model here represents a human transport variant. Like I said, it could be cargo variant, it could be a human cargo variant. Here it's a human transport variant. The human transport variant is equipped with a certain number of windows that you see on the top and an access hatch that you see on the side. On the front side here, you have the payload bay, and we might do it now very slowly. You can see on the side, on the windward side, on the other side, the tiles that correspond to the thermal protection for the hot re-entry in the atmosphere. What else is so special on Susie? Well, a few words about how Susie re-enters the atmosphere. Susie has no wings. Susie is just what we call a lifting body. And even though it has no wings, it achieves a comfortable and precise and controlled re-entry. So when we say comfortable, how comfortable? Well, it's about 2.5 to 3 Gs, maximum G load that you encounter during the re-entry, a nominal re-entry. By the way, this is quite similar to what you have on Space Mountain. So probably you have experienced that by yourself, and you know how that feels. One comment here, such level is fairly better than what you would have with a capsule. First point. The second point is that it is steerable, and we will say a little bit about that further. Aiming, therefore, for a precise landing spot on Earth. So in order to achieve that, you see Susie has a generic shape, what we call the lifting body, and that shape basically allows you to surf on the upper layers of the atmosphere, and by surfing, you basically dissipate the energy, you control yourself well, and you aim for a precise point. Yes, we talk about surfing, but don't forget, we are surfing here at Mach 25. That's not that easy. So in fact, to achieve that, surfing at Mach 25, for the re-entry, Susie adopts a few tricks. Some of them have been patented already. One of the tricks is related to these aerodynamic shapes that you see here, the controls that you see here. And this is quite an advanced control system that we have developed, imagined, given to the lessons learned from European re-entry vehicles. We can mention here especially the IXV, which was successfully flown and tested, and the heritage, the knowledge that we gained from this can be found here. And I would like to stress that the re-entry technologies that we adopt here on this vehicle, it's not black magic. It's all technology that is coming from available knowledge, be it the ARD, the capsule ARD, or the IXV that was test flown in Europe. So the technologies from the re-entry is known and applicable to this type of vehicle. A few more details now concerning mass, size, diameter, volumes, and stuff like this. Well, the vehicle, it has a body length of about 12 meters, a diameter of 5.4 meters, which is compatible, obviously, with the Ariane 6. The global mass at takeoff, it's 25 tons. It's quite simple. It corresponds to the performance that the launcher can achieve in low Earth orbit. Few words now about the payload that we have inside. The payload that we can safely bring back to Earth is about 7 tons. That's not too bad. And moreover, this payload can be in various forms. It can be in different shapes, in different configurations. It's highly flexible from that point of view. And it can be stored, placed wherever we want inside those 40 cubic meters, which is the volume, the payload volume that we have inside the vehicle. 40 cubic meters is not that little, because that's compared, for example, to a standard 20-foot truck, container that you have in the back of the trucks. It's more than these containers. So it's quite significant, and you can imagine that this offers a lot in terms of flexibility and commercial efficiency. Of course, this all brings high operational and commercial efficiency, and this is necessary to develop, we believe, space business. Just to tell you how important it was for us to design a vehicle which would be that flexible, we really looked at what was being doing on the trucks on Earth. And we thought, if such a flexibility would not be available on the trucks on Earth, there would be no flexibility and no business possible. That's why we take a great care, to have this type of flexibility also on this vehicle. What about the landing now? Because we have no wings, how do we land? Well, we are looking into a vertical precision landing for a soft touchdown. This soft touchdown will be achieved on a small spot, nominally today in Kourou, but it could be anywhere else in the world. And to do that, we need 2 critical technologies. Of course, the landing legs that you see here, These landing legs deploy just prior to the landing, once the aerodynamic surfaces are folded upwards. And another aspect, which is absolutely crucial, is the propulsion. Here we go for a non-toxic, highly reliable propulsion system, which is designed to ensure such a touchdown. And we believe that this type of propulsion is a key technology that we have to master, because it opens us a whole new universe, especially for exploration with heavy masses, when we want to land heavy masses on celestial bodies. One thing I would like to stress is that it's also in line with what we are learning today, with the THEMIS first stage demonstrator, and these knowledges all come together. Obviously, if you are stressing so much on this type of propulsion, it's because, like I said, on celestial bodies, we have no possibility to land on a landing strip waiting for us. So that's why this type of technologies, we believe, are of high importance. So anything else that I would like to mention about, let's say, the smartness of the concept? Yes. Something that is less visible, far less visible than what you can see on the mock-up or on the slides. It's inside the vehicle. And there are 2 major differentiators that I would like to stress. The first one is that from the very beginning of the design, we have incorporated in the vehicle an abort system, and a pretty clever one. One which is compatible with the European needs, which are specific, and which also allows to achieve what we call an end-to-end capability. That means that we can abort during all the flight phases of the vehicle, including the landing, even after the landing. So this is quite comparable to what you would have, for example, on a fighter jet ejection seat. The second point that I would like to stress is a little bit close to the first one, but it's the fact that the vehicle is an integrated vehicle. What does it mean? It means that we are going here to recover all the functions, all the major functions that are, I would say, inside the vehicle. We do not separate anything in space. Which functions? Well, we are talking about the abort system, first big function that we are recovering, and the other ones are all the life support systems, of course, and all the space life support systems. So the fact that the vehicle is such an integrated vehicle maximizes the potentiality for reusability. And we believe that this is fundamental in order to ensure economic viability of such a concept. Few words now about the perspectives and the potential evolutions of such a vehicle. Well, there is another sweet spot that I would like to highlight. This other sweet spot, it's the fact that this vehicle is scalable. What do we mean with scalability? Scalability comes, in fact, in different ways. Let's talk about the first one, which is, of course, the geometrical way. So scalability is simply like changing the scale of the vehicle, the size. But that's just one aspect. The other aspect of scalability is that, and we are adopting this and we are using it on the Susie concept, is that we can change the proportions of the vehicle. The proportions are the ratio between the length and the diameter, for example. And here it's extremely flexible. That's a big differentiator, as well with respect to a capsule. We can stretch the vehicle the way we want. It would still work. But beyond geometrical scalability, we also can see functional scalability. For example, if you look at this picture here. So what does it mean? It means that we could, for example, say on such a concept that we replace what is inside the payload bay by a volume where we can accommodate astronauts in a very comfortable way in order to allow them to fly for longer missions. Of course, to do so, Susie would not be sized enough, wouldn't be big enough. So we would connect Susie to a space transfer module, which would be able then to bring power, air, electricity, thrust, whatever you need to extend the mission, to go further than low Earth orbit. Okay, this being said, is that enough? Are we going to be happy if we just play with those ingredients? In fact, another aspect is very important as well. If we start playing like this with a space transfer module plus Susie, we have to check that our vehicle, that Susie, is also capable to re-enter with high energy in the atmosphere. Coming back from Moon or from Mars is not the same as coming and re-entering from low Earth orbit. We would there be surfing as well in the upper layers of the atmosphere, but not at Mach 25. We would be doing that at Mach 35. Well, we checked. And this is one of the major points that we push today. We say, okay, the concept that we have, it's scalable also energy-wise. That means that we can fly it at higher energies, re-entry modes. We did that, and we showed that there are no showstoppers for that. And I would like to stress that this is also a major differentiator with respect to other lifting bodies. Vehicles that would look like this, that you see around the world, but today they have some quite limitations regarding the energy of re-entry. This is not the case here on this vehicle. So, of course, when we are coming back from the Moon, from Mars, with such space trains, we call it space trains, not all the vehicle is re-entering the atmosphere, but just the part in the front, which is the Susie. The rest of the space train stays in orbit, it's reusable and refuelable, and therefore ready for a future mission. So now you understand that Susie has been already designed for evolution. In fact, we believe that Susie strongly prepares Europe for a variety of upcoming challenges. We have been speaking about cargo up and down, astronauts up and down, the resulting space activities and in-services. But another key aspect that I would like to stress is that the scalability that we have in Susie and all the related technologies that we have been developing, in fact, paves the way for future reusable launchers. And that's quite unique. That means that today, such a concept, when I say we stretch it, that we change the shape, we can do it in such a way that instead of having a payload bay here inside, we would have tanks, we would have an engine, and it would basically be a complete upper stage. And this also is highlighted by the picture that you see here. Today, we are proposing to fly Susie on the Ariane 6, which is going to fly, let's say, tomorrow. But the cool thing about Susie is that when the launcher is going to evolve, it's going to be more reusable. The technology is going to change. We can still think it as having a Susie on the top. So Susie will carry on to the next generation of launchers without a significant change. So, now, I invite you to imagine that we are now in 2031, in less than a decade from now. Let us witness a typical Susie mission to low Earth orbit with a Susie in its human transport version. We are now the 18th of September 2031, a few hours away from the first Susie flight with astronauts on board. The launch countdown continues to proceed smoothly, and we are now getting a live coverage from Kourou. All the systems are go for this historic mission. We have just passed the T-3 hours mark. Board Commander Nicole leads today her crew of 5 European astronauts, composed of 3 mission specialists and 2 pilots. As we can see live, the crew slowly progresses through the transparent gateway towards the Susie access hatch. The crew is assisted by 3 technicians. Each astronaut wears a comfortable, innovative spacesuit and carries some personal belongings in a special pack, a pack that he or she will be storing close to the seat. T-minus 2.5 hours now in the counting. Everything still proceeding smoothly through launch chronology today. The astronauts are now comfortably strapped into their respective seats. Modern tablets allow Commander Nicole to share high-order mission parameters with her team, further unrolling the launch chronology and checking onboard data. T-minus 10, 9, 8, final countdown, and liftoff. Liftoff for this historic mission for the first human European launch. Now we are 20 minutes into the flight. Susie is now injected in its intermediate orbit at 350 kilometers altitude, just over Europe. What a symbol. European astronauts reaching space on a European vessel precisely over Europe. Further coming back to you a few days later into the flight for a live coverage. This time, taken from Susie CubeSat, which is a free-flying inspection robotic vehicle that offers a spectacular view of mission specialist Joost. There we go. Joost is proceeding to an extravehicular activity. So why am I taking the example of Joost? It's not just for making a joke. It's because, and it's quite serious what I'm telling you now, we have taken the assumption that tall people like Joost would be able to fly on Susie. And we designed the internal layout for that. So it's not just a joke. Joost is now about 2 hours in his EVA. His mission today, the repair and the calibration of a new type of laser ranging system, planned to be used for upcoming docking maneuver expected tomorrow. He is now inspecting one of the large payload bay doors, checking the locking mechanism of the port solar panel, which is to be folded back in the payload bay prior to re-entry. Remember, I was telling you that we have an integrated system that is going to bring back all the functions, the major functions. This is typically one that we are going to bring back. After this orbit service activity, Susie Commander Nicole will prepare her ship and crew for the upcoming docking. Again, spectacular images taken from Susie's CubeSats companion, showing us the docking progressing live. We are now only a few meters away from Susie's international docking port connection to the private station, let's call it Alpha. On this mission, Susie will deliver refueling, experiments, and prior to the undocking, some orbital rising. Finally, about 20 days into the mission, we are witnessing live the final approach of Susie back from the very first mission with Europeans on board. We have touchdown of Susie at the Centre Spatial Guyanais. Mission accomplished. Welcome back on Earth.
Wow. What a guy to work with. What a guy to work with, not only because he's designing the seat for me, which was not the case when they designed planes. No, kidding. You understand why we are so proud today to be presenting you the Susie concept. When we started over 2 years ago, we set the bar quite high, and we ended up with a concept that is really a fundamentally smart technical approach. It is an approach which is scalable, modular, and reusable, avoiding a niche development. And it advances Europe significantly on many competencies, especially reusability. Now, launching things into space with high reliability and performance is in our DNA. So it's the perfect starting point for such an adventure. But the real importance here is the simplicity. It is simple in its essence, avoiding unnecessary and costly complexity. It really makes you think, why didn't we always do it like this? Well, the fact that the solution is scalable provides us with a huge opportunity. It is scalable, as Marco said, not only in geometry and function, but we can also use an incremental approach to implement it. We can already fly it on Ariane 6. We don't have to wait for the next generation launcher. We can already start with a subscale demonstrator to make sure and to prove ourselves that indeed we have all these technologies in Europe together with the whole industry. And then we can develop an automated cargo version and later a human-rated version. And as you've seen, we can even think ahead, stretching it even further and putting in all the cryogenic propulsion systems of the upper stage, enabling full launcher reusability. So now you understand the full potential that we can unleash step by step.
So what do we expect from such a system able to do both cargo and transport to humans? Why it is so critical? First, because we are convinced that space systems tomorrow need to serve multiple purposes. Second, because it's driving us towards a fully reusability of the space transportation system. Third, because it is about strategic autonomy. Today, only few players have access to space, and we have seen recently how fragile some equilibrium could be. And I would like to recall that in Europe, we already have a huge heritage for both cargo and human spaceflight. Let's think about ATV, the most complex spacecraft ever built in Europe, able to autonomously dock to the ISS, to the International Space Station, or the service module for the Orion capsule, who is supplying life functions to astronauts, but as well thermal protection, propulsion, and power. Susie will take all these heritage and shape a new future, already starting with Ariane 6. And now let's make it more concrete. Let's go together to Guyana. You're right. She's beautiful, isn't it? How do you feel? Because that's the feeling we want you to continue to have. We want you to feel our willingness to shape a new way of doing space. Responsible, not only shared in few hands, a place we can act to protect the Earth, forefront of innovation, and still a place where us and our children dream to be. Remember Leonardo, once you have been there, you will always learn to return. Thank you.